Welcome everybody to this JMC webinar, our 25-26 Nebraska State Reporting Roundup. My name is Jake Van Scoy. I am the head of training here at JMC. I am joined by a couple of Gregs here, Greg Appleby, Greg Gilman. Many of you that are on this are probably familiar with Greg Appleby, but Greg, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Jake, Greg Appleby here. I'm with JMC. I've been with JMC for a couple years now after retiring as a school principal in Nebraska at Summerlin. So I enjoy my time as client service specialist helping out the Nebraska schools.
Awesome, thank you very much. We're also joined by Greg Gilman, one of our developers here. Greg, do you want to say hi to folks?
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here, and we're going to talk about some Nebraska state reporting.
All right, wonderful here. Thank you very much. So, as mentioned, as we kick off another new school year, JMC continues its 25-year tradition of supporting schools with tools that simplify reporting and boost efficiency. Our mission remains the same: to empower schools with smart, reliable technology so they can stay focused on what matters most: student success. Join us today as we explore how JMC's state reporting tools can streamline your reporting process. We'll highlight new features, walk through essential state of the year or start of the year tasks, and share insights to help you report with confidence. So, as mentioned, today is all about advisor state reporting and getting yourself started here in Nebraska, which for many of you, or for some of you anyway, the start of the school year is right around the corner. So, as always, we have our Q&A feature built right into Ring Central. Greg Appleby will be keeping an eye on the questions as we go through, and we're going to get started. So before we get into submitting any information, we have some fundamental tasks for state reporting that are accomplished kind of ahead of time here, and we're going to go through some of those tasks. But one of the caveats that I need to bring up here to start is, as of July 30th, our software has not yet been certified by the the Nebraska Department of Education. And you know, it's a process that the state hands down some changes or some updates or some things that that we need to include or exclude in the software. For the most part, a lot of that stuff is pretty low key for this year. We'll be talking about some of the new things. So process wise, we're very similar to what we have been in years past, but we're still going through that certification process. So you might bump into a few pages that are saying your build or your software has not yet been certified for the upcoming school year. We're working on it as we speak, and that's hopefully something that we'll be able to make available in the very near future here. But you'll probably see me as I go through this bounce back and forth between last year and this year, just so I can show you for frame of reference some of the pages that we're talking about. So jumping right into the fundamentals of Nebraska state reporting. Before you dive into state reporting, make sure the essential basic or beginning of the year tasks in JMC Office are complete. These foundational items, like setting term dates, updating student enrollment, and configuring building details, are not only critical for daily operations, but also set the stage for accurate, compliant reporting. Checking them off early helps ensure a smooth start to both the school year and your state submissions. So we're going to start with setting your school's calendar. And so much of what we talk about for state reporting, these pieces are kind of baked into the cake. So you're not going to get very far in JMC with anything that you do, whether it be scheduling or attendance taking, if you haven't set your calendar. So most people or most schools, this is the first task that they take care of, and they don't even think of it as a key part of state reporting, but it is an essential element to state reporting, especially when calculating attendance and things of that nature. So we need to set our district and our building level calendars. Our district calendar sets the start and end dates of the school year, and it also marks non-school days like holidays, teacher conferences, or in-service. Helpful tip: a complete calendar keeps attendance, scheduling, and reporting accurate all year long. So if you have those no school days that pop up throughout the year, revisit your calendar, make those updates as we go here. So attendance calendar days is where we are. We're setting our district calendar, and then we're also going to set our building level calendars. Our building calendar consists of the term dates for each building, along with any special days that differ from the district calendar, like later start dates for kindergarten or earlier end dates for graduating seniors. Helpful tip, customizing building calendars ensures accurate scheduling and reporting for every grade level. So let's take a live look at setting your school's calendar. Again, many of you, as you rolled into JMC for the first time the school year, probably had an alert right at the top in red saying set your term dates, your beginning of year and end of year dates. Again, I'm in 25, 26. I might have to bounce out of that to show you a few pages, but not this one. We're going to be under attendance calendar days, and we are going to start at the district level. So you see the first day of school and the last day of school are grayed out here. I can't do anything with those. At the building level, I need to be at the district level. So I'm going to change that switch building to the district building. And now I can edit the first day of school and the last day of school. That's just a drop-down list where you'd select the date for the first day, the date of the last day, and then you'd click save. That's going to update those dates. If you have any no school days that you are aware of right out the bat, like your Christmas vacation or Thanksgiving break, say Thanksgiving falls around this time. Again, at the district level, I'm going to double click the day in which we have no school. It's going to turn it into a no school day. I'm going to double click this. It's going to turn that into a no school day. Double click this. It's going to turn that into a no school day. So there's my Thanksgiving break. If you toggle through that double click, so I'm just going to kind of go, so that's a no school day. I'm going to double click it again. And now it's going to turn it into a no school AM. So if I had a late start or an early dismissal, I can toggle through those just by double clicking. And now this is giving me a no school PM. So let's say we had an early dismissal on the 25th and then no school the 26th, 27th, 28th. That's how I would set that up. And I have gotten this question before, but Nebraska does not go to the granularity of calculating the exact number of minutes that would go into a late start or an early dismissal. So scheduling it as no school afternoon or no school morning is sufficient for Nebraska state reporting. So I've got my district level calendar. I'm going to flip over to the building level calendar and make sure each of my term dates are set. I've got my special days that I can set for my grade level. I can set them for individual grade levels or for all grade levels at once. So if your kindergarten group or your preschool group has, they don't start until September 1st, you can set no school days for your early childhood, kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, and then your seniors, if they don't go all the way until the last day of school, if they graduate a few days early, you can set the no school days for those. So those are the special days. You also have term dates, which would be the first thing that you would set. I can click this view term dates quick link to see, and you see these populated for me. They're all set. My fake school here is on quarters and semesters. So I've got the start date and end date for the year and the semesters and each of the quarters. If I had courses that were using this trimester or hex or summer term type, I would need to set the start and end dates for those as well. But since I do not in my school, I don't have to set those. Either of the Gregs, anything to add, or are there any questions about setting your calendar?
Looks good, Jake, and I see no questions at this time.
All right, wonderful. So as mentioned before, it's a fundamental task. It's one of those things that you would definitely start your year for all schools in Nebraska, setting that calendar. Next thing you're going to want to do is establish state IDs, which starts with acquiring those state IDs. The Nebraska Department of Ed assigns students a state ID for state reporting purposes. To obtain these IDs, start by exporting a student ID file from JMC Office, which includes basic demographic information like name, birthday, and gender. Then upload this file to the NDE to receive a state ID file for the selected students, ensuring that all student data is properly aligned with the state's requirements for seamless reporting. In JMC Office, we're going to head to Nebraska, State ID, Export Person ID file to acquire the student file that is uploaded to the NDE's website. So Nebraska, State ID, Export Person ID file. Step 1, we'll select all students, only students with no state ID or a specific grade from the grade level drop-down list to generate a state ID file for the selected students. So if you are brand new to JMC, you might select all students from this, meaning you don't have any students in your district with state IDs. If you have been using JMC for a while, most of your students probably already have Nebraska IDs. You might just need to fill in for those new students. So that's where you might select the only students with no state ID from that drop-down list. Click the check errors button to have JMC automatically check for errors such as no birth date or anything that might prevent acquiring IDs from the state. Head to the View Student Data page and fix any error that's listed on that error report, and then repeat step 2 until you're error-free to ensure a successful file exchange. And then step 3, once you are error-free, click the Start Export button to create a student file for upload to the NDE. Step 4, you're going to head to the Nebraska Department of Ed portal to upload your student file and obtain student state IDs from the NDE. Step 5, once you've received those IDs, you'll enter the student IDs in the State ID field on the General tab of the View Student Data page to enable state reporting for your students. So the State ID field is on that General tab. I'll show this in a live look. All the way to the right, State ID, not to be confused with Student ID or ID number. It's the State ID that you're entering in here, and then you'll click either of the Save buttons at the top or bottom of the page. So let's take a live look at acquiring student state IDs. Go home, and we're going to go to Nebraska, State ID, Export Person ID file. And I'm going to start with maybe just only students with no state IDs. I'm going to check for errors, and it's going to list any errors that might be preventing me from identifying students with the state. So if there are any fields missing, last name, first name, birthday, gender, these are probably all fields that you would have filled out, but if not, you would receive those errors listed here. And if you receive no errors, then you're ready to continue with your export. If you do receive errors, you're going to go to the View Student Data page, and you will fix any of those errors. So if you're missing a birth date, you just have to enter a birthday, find the student, make sure they have a last name, first name, a gender, a grade, and a birthday, those fields there. You'll export, go back to Nebraska, State ID, Export Person ID. We're going to start that export. You're going to get a CSV file that has a list of all of your students. You'll take that to the Nebraska NDE's page. I think I just Google searched it to find the portal for student IDs. I think there's a link on that NDE page. Upload it to the NDE, and then you'll receive a file back that has your student state IDs. Once you've got your student state IDs, head to the View Student Data page, take a look at that state ID field right here, enter the state ID number in there, click Save, and that should do it for you. Greg Appleby, any questions or anything to add to that? Or Greg Gilman, anything to add to that?
I don't have anything. Will they have to enter in them individually, or is there a way to auto-populate them?
At this time, it is or it's a manual entry. This is one of the things that um, we have some streamlined processes in other states that will get IDs from the state, but that technology doesn't exist with the NDE at this time. So we can't pull over those state IDs, which would be extremely handy. It's handy for Wisconsin and Nebraska or in Minnesota, but just not there in Nebraska yet.
And
Yeah,
I
what
think one
you're
thing for our new schools, I believe that they've already got state IDs for their students that were enrolled last year. Those will probably already be in there.
Yeah, if
those
that
should
came,
come,
yeah, yeah. Go ahead,
sorry.
Greg. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, those should come through from the data conversion. And what Jake was referring to is something called Identity API, which once we have that capability with NDE, we'll probably implement it where you could just click a button here and get the ID, or at least search through near matches and pick one. Jake, but they can import that person ID file when they get it back from the state, but that's not as automated. So state ID, oh, it says only export. Okay, I guess we don't have the ability to import it for some reason. Nope, never mind.
Yeah.
Something for me to work on.
Or they can get the API figured out and we can bypass that import, which would be
I
way
think that's,
handier. Just click a
I
button
think
and
that's
get
what
that.
we were waiting for. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
No,
no questions yet from the crowd.
All right. Awesome. So, fundamental task, make sure your students have IDs. Once they have IDs, it's time to start managing that student enrollment and program information. So those are really the two fundamental tasks that you would take care of in Nebraska. You'd make sure you've got your calendar set up, make sure all of your students have student IDs. And actually, one resource that I'd like to point everybody to quickly is under File, Start of School Year Checklist. If you go to the state reporting item, this is going to list out a lot of those pieces that we just that we're going to refer to in this presentation throughout this presentation. So a lot of this stuff, the imports, this is handling the program, this is managing student enrollment and programs, and it's something that you're going to do throughout the year as well. But at the start of the year, it's nice to be aware of it so we can get at least these imports taken care of. And as I mentioned before, you're going to get a red notification under the current school year until our certification is complete. Once we're certified, you'll be able to import enrollment history records and things of that nature. So starting with importing enrollment history. Importing student enrollment history records from a previous year in JMC streamlines attendance and enrollment updates for state reporting. It creates current year records and eliminates the need to manually update individual student details, including resident district, county, and foster care status. Head to Nebraska enrollment history, import enrollment history from a prior year to begin updating your enrollment history records. Step 1, click the import button to update the current year enrollment history for each student with the latest information from the previous year. Fun fact, no need to review or edit enrollment records after the import. Head to the enrollment tab of the View Student Data page to view and edit records imported from the prior year. Helpful tip, click the details about enrollment or importing enrollment history link in the quick link section to view additional information and instructions related to enrollment history records. Step 2, click the print import summary button to print a list of the updated active attendance, state reporting, and enrollment records, and click the cancel import summary button to return to the previous page. So after you perform your import, you'll get a list of all of the items that were imported in the current school year. You can review that list for your records, but it's nothing that you have, there's nothing that's really actionable about this page. Once you've imported enrollment history, you can use that drop student, add student, or re-enter student feature, which we're going to be talking about here in just a little bit, to update all enrollment changes that occur after the start of the school year. to ensure that you have complete enrollment records for state reporting purposes. So let's take a live look at importing enrollment records. I'm gonna go orient myself, go home, I go to Nebraska, enrollment history, import enrollment history from a prior year, and there's that red notification that you will receive if you go to this page. I'm just going to back up a year to show you what this page looks like. You will no longer be able to import your enrollment history after October 15th. This is in fact something that you're going to want to take care of right away. Import that enrollment history as soon as this is available. Click that import button, and then enrollment records that are listed. I'm back on the view student data page on the enrollment tab here. That includes your entry date, your entry code, district of residence, all of the state reporting goodies that you would normally find there. They'll be updated in the current year once you've completed that import. All of this data. So generally speaking, on the enrollment tab, you would not use this enrollment tab to edit any of this information. If you have a change in enrollment, we've got a few different wizards, is what we like to call them, that actually step out each of the pieces that you would need to pay attention to, just to help you avoid missing a field and getting an error as you start submitting data to the state. So we really highly recommend that you use the proper add drop procedures, and we're going to go through each of those here in just a second. But the first place you would start is that importing of enrollment history records. So does anybody have any questions about what the import does, or why you would have to do it, or anything of that nature?
I see no questions, Jake.
Greg, do you have anything to add about the import? Seems pretty straightforward.
The import enrollment history from the prior year.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd like to save my observations for the end about that, but basically nothing appears to have changed for 25, 26 there. So those processes should remain the same. It's just a question of when we're going to enable those for you to go to work. And I'll address that at the end of the session.
Okay. Wonderful. All right, so along with importing enrollment history, we're also going to import program history. Importing program history from the previous year generates program records for the current year, saving you the effort of updating each student's program records individually. This allows you to start the school year with up-to-date student records for state-sponsored programs such as career education, early childhood, 504 plans, all of which require annual tracking. Simplify your advisor state reporting by importing program history records in just a few clicks in JMC Office. So this works very similar. In JMC Office, you're going to go to Nebraska, program history, import program history from a prior year to begin your import. Step one, you'll enter the begin date or simply click the calendar icon to associate a starting date with the imported program history record. It's probably going to be the first day of the school year. Step two, this is an optional step. For the most part, you aren't going to know the end date, but if you want to end all of a specific record, and I might have to lean on Greg Appleby to explain when you would want to populate this field, but it's an option. If you know the end date of the program, you can enter it in that end date field, or simply click the calendar icon to select a date.
I can help you out there, Jake. Sure. End date is, we've always had an end date for programs, but it's really lightly used for state reporting purposes. If a kid is in and out of a program, for example, they're out of early ed at an early date and you want to put it in, fine. It's for your purposes only. It's not a state reported field.
Okay, gotcha. That helps. So the end date field is something on that programs tab on the view student data page. It's something that you can essentially mass fill if you choose to, or it's something that you can go back and manually enter if that's something that you want to keep track of. So that makes sense. As mentioned, typically the begin date for the program reentry is set as the first day of school for your district, but adjustments can be made on the View Student Data page for special cases involving individual students. Step 3, place a check mark in the following program type checkboxes to import student records associated with the selected programs from the prior year. So this is where you can kind of pick and choose which program records you would like to import from the previous year and which you'd maybe like to exclude. So we've got career education, that's the career and technical education information, including career pathway, technical skill attainment, and program participation level. You've got early childhood programs such as Head Start or school readiness. Got homeless, it'd be information for programs providing services for homelessness. Rule 18 is an interim program to make advancement toward graduation. Section 504 would be services for students with disabilities. And Title I, Part A would be financial assistance to meet academic standards. Step 4, once you've chosen the records that you would like to include in that import, you'll click the import button to execute that program history import from the prior year. Fun fact, the prog hist, or the program history tab on the View Student Data page, will be highlighted yellow to help you quickly identify the records that exist for that student. So let's just quickly take a live look at where that would be, where you would find it. This is Nebraska program history, import program history from a prior year. So Nebraska program history, import program history. Again, the begin date is entered in there, start date of the school year. I can pick and choose which programs I would like to include in the import. Click the import button, it's going to pull information from the prior year into this year, program information. And it looks like you can currently run this without the certification. If I go back to that View Student Data page, I click the program history record. This is where it's going to show if a program history record exists for a student. You can see it here. Add one here, and these are the different programs. You know, we've got 504 designation, that sort of thing. Yeah. Any questions or anything to add to that?
Looks good, Jake. No questions.
Okay. Greg, do you have any practical advice regarding maybe which program history records you would import from the prior year and which ones you would not?
We always imported our 504 kids, and I don't see the EL programs there. I'm not sure if that's in another place. Maybe Greg Gilman would know that.
Let's take a look at the View Student Data page, if you would, please. I'd like to look there. Look in the EL tab. Okay, since the data is still here, let's go to the Programs History tab, please. And go to Add a Row and check that drop-down list. So we do have some ELL options in here. Currently, we are not importing those. I don't know if that's just because no one's ever bothered me to do that, or if there's a reason. I can't think of what the reason would be, Jake, but if folks are interested in that, or if there's other additional program history record types you want to import that we don't offer yet, just feel free to contact us and we'll try to accommodate you.
Yeah, I think the point of all of these imports and the point of these pages are to make sure that you have the elements that you need to submit for state reporting. And if something like an import is going to help you along with something like, say, ELL program status, let us know, and that's something that we can look at and including in the import. And I will say that the state does have kind of a hand in advising us to what information they want to allow us to import and what they want you to go in and fill out every year kind of as um, a best practices in data entry sort of situation. So it come down to that, but yeah.
The bottom line is those importers are tools for helping you. And if you need more help, just let us know.
Right. Kate received an error stating incorrect date value. Wondering if, let's see here, check your calendar days. Make sure you have your calendar set up for your term dates. I'm sorry, not your term dates, your start of school year, your first day of school year, your last day of school year. Make sure that import matches that first day, which it should, as long as you have that set. And that's for importing program history. Yes, yeah, that's so under Nebraska program history, import program history. So I've got the begin date, it matches. Let's just import and see what happens. Okay, this year, yeah, this is probably due to the certification or the lack of certification, I would imagine. So maybe this is something that we have to hold off on. And Greg, this might be something that we need to throw that red alert on that says we can do it after the certification, similar to our enrollment history import like this. I'm assuming that's why we're receiving that error. I was a little surprised that this wasn't on that page initially prior to the certification. Right. So now tackling enrollment procedures. Determining the right procedure for student enrollment or withdrawal can be challenging due to varying circumstances. This helpful guide covers common situations for students joining or leaving your school, helping you manage enrollment with confidence, keeping student records accurate for reporting and funding, and maintaining precise enrollment data. And it's the more familiar with it you become, the easier it does get. But you might have some questions initially like, well, I see this new student wizard, and I see this add student, and I see this drop student, and I see this delete student. And I know all four of them perform a function that has to do with getting rid of or bringing in student data, but when do I use it and why do I use it and what do they do? Well, this primer here, if you keep this sheet, and I'll show you the article where this information comes from here when I do the live look. If you keep this handy and actually share this amongst anybody in your school that is handling student enrollment information, this is something that can help make sure that your enrollment records are nice and tidy and avoid some headaches trying to unravel some spaghetti when it gets to be that reporting time. So working with students entering your school, we're going to kind of bucket all of these processes under, I've got a kid that's entering my school. What do I do? Okay. Well, generally speaking, if you're adding a student who is brand new to your district, their family's never been in your district before, you can use that new student wizard, and it walks you through the process of entering a new student who has never attended your district. And that's the key to this. If you got a kid that has never attended your district, you use that new student wizard and you create the new record. If you've got a student that is returning to your district, we've got a different process for that because there are already enrollment records that are tied to that student from a previous span of enrollment. So brand new to your district, a couple ways you can get them into your system. You use that new student wizard, or you can even use the new family enrollment process, which basically does the same thing. We have, built within this presentation, we have the steps to follow to enter a new student. So you can click on this if you have to enter a new student that's brand new to your district. Click this, follow those steps. It'll walk you right through it. And I'll show you in the live look. But the key to note here, It's a brand new to your district, use the new student wizard. If you've got a 5th-year senior, so students after they complete 12th grade are naturally rolled out of your JMC as you move from one year to the next. However, if you've got some super seniors that need to come back in a 5th year for a 5th year, you're going to use that new student wizard, but then choose the returning student radio button, and that's going to re-enroll a student who previously completed 12th grade but is coming back to finish some graduation requirements. So those are the two functions of the new student wizard. If you have a student that is enrolling, they've spent a span of enrollment at your school, left, and are now returning to your school, that's when you would use the add student page. So this is under attendance student, add student. This is a page that re-enrolls a student who left the district before the end of the prior school year and is now returning. You don't have to do, you ended the school year last year and all of your students are coming back for this year. You don't have to do the add student for all of those students. That's what the import enrollment history records do. But if you had a kid that left, say in March, they completed the last couple months of enrollment at a different school, and now they're returning to your school over the summer, maybe they moved back into the district or whatever the case might be, that's where you would use the attendance student, add student, because when they left initially, you used the drop student feature, and that capped their enrollment record for your school year last year. So they show a span already. All of their information is already in JMC. We don't want to add them again and create a duplicative record. We want to maintain the same record with a different enrollment span, which is why we would use that add student feature instead of the new student wizard. Finally, we have a re-enter student. So this is where we would use the re-enter student to re-enroll a student who has attended at least one day in the current year, left, and is now returning to your school in the same year. So we have the add student. They're coming back from an enrollment span. They left in March and now they're returning for the start of the school year. Well, if they've started the school year, they leave in November, and then they come back in January, they're going to have an enrollment record that spans the current school year. But it's almost going to be two different enrollment records because there are two different spans of enrollment within that calendar year. So that's where you would use that re-enter student. So let's take a live look at working with students that are entering your school, and I'll also show you how to find this information so you can quickly access it. And I'm going to have to bounce to the previous school year so I can show you how these things work. So first thing I'm going to show you, if you go to the widget, our little widget in the bottom right-hand corner, and I'm going to search for handling students entering or leaving. And this is the article that I'm referring to. It goes through each of these scenarios for students entering your school. It lists this out. All right, I have a student that's entering my district for the first time. How do I create a new student record? Tells you this, and then you can click in here for specific instructions on using the new student wizard per se. I can also view this article in the Help Center. I'm going to open this in the Help Center. So it's a standalone URL. I can print out this article. I can bookmark this article so I can reference it quickly whenever I have a student entering or leaving. And then it's as simple as, all right, I've got a student entering. Well, which scenario best describes that student? First time? No. Completed 12th grader? No. They attended in a prior year and they're now returning to the district. Okay, yes, that fits. What do? I use the add student page. How do I do it? I click that add student link, and it's going to take me to adding students that are returning to your school, and it's going to give me the step-by-step of where to go and how to do that thing. Okay, so just a little tutorial on how to use our Help Center there. Very handy tool. I'll start with the new student wizard. So that very first situation here where we have a student that's entering your district for the very first time. We're going to go to Edit New Student Wizard, and this process walks you through entering information for a new student. If they're new to the district or if they're a 12th year senior or a 5th year senior that are returning again, you can choose either option. I'm going to choose the new student, and it's actually going to walk me through 2 steps. There's 2 phases here. I enter the student's demographic information, last name, first name, gender, and grade. At a minimum, I have to enter those 4 fields. You can enter as much information as you want. I would definitely enter birthday for sure. So you've got last name, first name, gender, grade, birthday. You can create the contacts, and then when you click save, it's going to advance you to the next step of this process, which is going to take you to this page, and this is where you're going to add the enrollment information. So the wizard just compounds 2 steps to creating an enrollment record. It's adding the student's demographic information and entering their enrollment information. So that's entering a brand new student. If we've got and it's also handling a 12th grader that requires additional credits. If we've got a student that attended your district in a prior year and they are now returning to your district, that's where you're going to use that add student. So this is under attendance, student, add student. Choose the kid from the list, choose the day that they're returning. This would probably be the first day of the school year. And then what's the reason? You know, the add code, they're still enrolled. This was an original entry. They're transferring in. Residence status, you know, answer the questions that the state's asking for, and then click that add button. I think this process is going to be very similar this year as to last year. The re-enter student, very similar. You know, if you've got a kid that is, you know, spanning that enrollment, maybe they left for a brief period of time in December, they are returning to your school. That's where you'd use attendance student, re-enter student. We have no students that we dropped during this year. Those are going to be the only students that are going to be in the list, or the students that were properly dropped during the current school year. So you grab the student, select the day that they're returning, and then the add code and the remaining enrollment information. I think that's about it for the handling students entering your school. We're going to get into the leaving school here in just a minute, unless we have any questions.
See, no question this time, Jake. Well covered, important information that you understand which one of those steps. They're really easy once you identify which one of those steps or situations that fits your example.
Absolutely. So now working with students leaving your school. So most of this is handled through the drop student, and I have one major point of emphasis that I need to reiterate here. So if you have a student that is leaving your school during the school year, you're going to withdraw that student who attended at least one day during the academic school year using the drop student page in JMC office. This removes the student from active status, and it maintains demographic and enrollment records for state reporting. So if you've got a kid that showed up for 2 months or 2 days or 2 weeks in your school, the state wants a record that that kid attended school somewhere. And if funding is going to be tied to that student for your school, you want to make sure that that student is accounted for with an enrollment record. So if you've had an enrollment record created for that student, but they're leaving, using the drop student feature will properly code that student as exited along with the day that they exited, and it will have that, it'll maintain that demographic and enrollment record within your school. And it'll also allow you to continue to report that student, and so you can maintain the funding, and that student has that continuous enrollment record. So that's on the attendance student drop student page. You got a student that left over the summer, you're also going to use that drop student page, but you'll select day 0 to remove that student who's left your school over the summer and is not returning for the upcoming school year. So it's day 0 prior to school year, if you've got any kids that are dropping over the summer. The crust of the biscuit, as they say, is the delete student page. You will only use the delete student function if you wish to permanently remove a student's record. And this is probably a student who was never enrolled in your school, maybe a student that was added by mistake, possibly a test student or a demo student that you used for demonstration purposes. Maybe you wanted to see what it looked like from a parent end, what JMC looked like from a parent end. So you created a demo student and a demo contact so you could log into JMC Family and see what a schedule looked like, for example. That's a student that you don't want in your site anymore. That is the only time you would use a delete a student. What happens frequently is, we've got a school that says, "Oh, I have a kid leaving. They're leaving my district next Tuesday. Well, let's delete them. Let's get rid of them." If you delete that student, it also deletes the enrollment record for that student. So now the state's going to be wondering, "Hey, Johnny said he was going to your school from September through November, but you are not submitting a record for that kid. What gives?" And you're like, "Well, I deleted that kid's record." Well, don't do that. That's why we have the drop student function. The delete student is only if they shouldn't be in your site for whatever reason. So let's take a live look at working with students that are leaving your school. This is probably simpler than the enrollment. So I'm going to go to attendance, student, drop student. I select the student. If they left over the summer, I choose the prior to school year. If they attended at least one day, I choose the days up, their last day of school, their last day of enrollment at your school, right there. The other function is the delete student. So this is under edit, delete a student. We force you to log into the district level to do this. The only time you're going to delete a student, if, for example, so like this is a prime example of why you would delete a student. I've got 2 records for adult Rachel. I don't know why I have 2 records for that student, but I can go ahead and, after I've verified which one I should have, which one I shouldn't have, so I can probably go to the view student data page, find the 2, they might actually be inactive. $196. Oh, okay, that student isn't in there. That must be that record must be an older record. But if for whatever reason I came to the view student data page and I saw duplicate students, and I know I shouldn't have duplicate students, what I would do is make a little star next to the kid's name that needs to be removed from the district, save it so that I can identify that kid, and then when I can go to the edit, delete a student page, I have 2 that are listed. There's James Aseth and James Aseth that has the star right after his name. So that would be the student that I would want to delete. But I'm not going to do that right now. Are there any questions?
No, Katie just thought maybe that was under adult, that one that you were trying to show that you couldn't find.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Yep, you're right. There's 197, 196. Yeah, so that's what I would do. All right. This is the one that I want to get rid of. Save. And now I can go to edit, delete a student. That's the Rachel I want to get rid of. Now we can recover those records. It just makes it, it unravels some spaghetti for you. You have a kid that you thought should be in your school. They're not in your school. Where are they? I don't know where they are. They're not listed here. You've created another record, and now all of a sudden we've got a major problem. You can still recover those kids using the new student wizard returning student feature, but we'd rather you not have to do that. So try to avoid deleting those students if you can. If there aren't any questions, we'll move into submission now. So you've prepared the fundamentals of your site. You've handled your enrollment and program records, and now it's time to submit that start year data. It's going to start with configuring your EdFi settings. Before submitting start year data to advisor in Nebraska, it's important to update EdFi settings in JMC Office. By configuring EdFi settings, enabling interchanges, and making necessary selections, schools can seamlessly share student and school information for state reporting. Follow the steps in JMC's EdFi settings to establish the connection with advisor, receive error notifications, enable special education data posting, schedule automated updates, and submit attendance to the state. To configure your EdFi settings, log into JMC Office and go to File Administrator Options and click the EdFi settings link in the EdFi settings box to begin enabling your connection to advisor. Step 2, you'll place a check mark in the Enable EdFi Interchanges checkbox to allow JMC to send and receive information through advisor. Step 3, enter your email address in the EdFi Nightly Attendance Error Notification email address field to receive an email explaining errors detected during your nightly sync. So what's going to happen with EdFi interchanges enabled, eventually you're going to get to the point where your data is error-free and it's flowing to the advisor portal. So the state is receiving information on a nightly basis. If you have entered a student, using one of those enrollment procedures and you missed a field, or you have an error, maybe there was an overlapping enrollment record for the kid accidentally, you'll want to receive notification of that so you can fix those errors. So whoever is going to be in charge of fixing those errors for state reporting, that's whose email address should be in there. Step 4, an optional step, place a check mark in the Enable Posting of EdFi Special Education Resources, the SSEPA checkbox, to allow the NDE to access your school's special education data. Fun fact or helpful tip, remove the check mark from the Enable Posting of EdFi Special Education Resources checkbox if your school uses a third-party special education vendor for maintaining and reporting special education data to the NDE. We know a lot of our Nebraska schools use the state-provided software for keeping track of and reporting their special education students. If you use that third-party software, you would remove that check mark from that checkbox. Fun fact, the JMC staff will enter the new API URL, authentication URL, client key, and client secret in the appropriate fields to connect to the advisor server when they are made available by the NDE. So the NDE lets us know when this information is available, and then we will fill these fields out for you. So no reason to touch those 4 fields. Step 5, you'll select an option from the report detail level drop-down list to receive a summary or a detailed email report for nightly EdFi attendance submissions. And what I would recommend using this drop-down list for is, for the most part, you're going to have it on summary level. You're receiving nightly information, and for the most part, it's going through without a hitch. You don't need to know the gory details of exactly what's being sent and all that sort of stuff unless there's a problem. Once you encounter a problem, or if you need to loop us in, you reach out to support@jmcinc.com and you're like, hey, I've got this error that's happening. I don't know why it's happening. Can you help me out? One of our tech support might go in here and change this report detail level to detail so we can get the gory details of why your report isn't going through, or why your information isn't going through the way that we would expect it. So for the most part, you'll have this on summary unless you need more detailed information in your reports, and then you might choose detailed. Step 6, an optional step. Select an option from the report sort order drop-down list to sort email reports for nightly EdFi attendance submissions. So you can sort them by timestamp. There are a couple different options there. Step 7, place a check mark in the Enable Scheduled Update checkbox to allow JMC to automatically send and receive student data during nightly advisor submissions. And the part that goes with that is you would select the time in the time field, or click that clock icon to schedule that time for the daily scheduled updates to occur. And then you have your email address that you would want to receive those nightly updates. The thing with this is I would recommend disabling the scheduled updates until you've made an error-free student submission. So get your data flowing error-free to advisor, and then enable those scheduled updates. Step 10, select a building from the building drop-down list to edit nightly attendance reporting. And this is the one piece that might be changing this year. So you select that building, and then we've got the enable submission for student school attendance, which is the required. This is the check mark here. And then the second check mark is enable attendance, enable nightly submission for student section attendance. The 25-26 state certified software is going to remove this second option, or it's actually just going to probably include it with this other submission. So you're required to enable nightly submissions, and that should take care of you as long as you have that checked, and then click save. And as I mentioned before, helpful tip, enable nightly attendance submissions after the fall membership count in October to avoid sending incomplete data and placing unnecessary strain on the state system during the early weeks of the school year. So you'll wait until you have your data flowing error-free. Once it's error-free and you've gotten through that fall membership count date, then you would go to your EdFi settings and enable that nightly setting submission. So what I would do if I were you is I would set a reminder in my calendar for sometime after that October count to go to the EdFi settings page and enable nightly submissions, just as my reminder, similar to me changing my furnace filter. Fun fact, the enable nightly submissions for student section attendance recommended function is only available for schools that are tracking period attendance. So if you're only tracking AM, PM attendance, you will not have this available to you. And actually, I think this is going away. This is one of the pieces that's going away. So your final step, click the save button to update any of your EdFi settings, and that should do her. So let's take a live look. This is under File, Online Settings. I'm sorry, Administrator Options. I always get those two confused. File, Administrator Options. I click the EdFi Settings link there. And first off, this check mark, Enable EdFi Interchanges. When I'm ready, I want that checked. I want an email address listed right here. If I am sending special education resource records through JMC, I want that checked. If I'm using that third-party vendor, I have that unchecked. JMC will fill out these 4 fields for you. Should be noted that the client key and client secret that you're seeing here are for demonstration purposes only. You select the report level detail. For the most part, you're going to be on the summary mode until there's a problem. Then you can switch this to the detail mode so you can see what that problem is specifically. You can choose a sort order by timestamp or by resource type, by method or by student. Once again, enable those scheduled updates with a time and an email address after that October date. And then if you are submitting attendance, period attendance, make sure there's a check mark in that checkbox and click save. Either of the Gregs, anything to add?
No, you're spot on. That student section attendance will go away. It is no longer being collected by NDE starting with 25-26. Very underutilized. Most people weren't messing with it anyway, and NDE wasn't relying on that data either. So just simplify all of our lives.
Simplify the process. Exactly. All right.
If there are no questions, Jake.
If there aren't any questions, let's get down to the submission then, and we'll wrap this thing. So now once we have our EdFi settings, it's time to sync our data here. So serving as the initial state reporting milestone, submitting advisor data, advisor start year data is the first step in ensuring accurate and timely reporting. Navigate through the process with guidance from the start year page to successfully submit your data to the state through the advisor portal. By completing the tasks and requirements on each tab of the start year page in JMC Office, you can streamline your reporting process and ensure compliance with state regulations. So we're going to go to, once it's time to start sending this stuff, we're going to go to Nebraska Advisor Start Year. Step one, we'll click the Prep tab to access the checklist of items that are to be completed before the start of the school year. Place a check mark in the appropriate check boxes to indicate that you have completed the item listed. So start at the Prep tab, start at the top and work down. And this checklist is extremely handy. It's going to point you to a lot of the things that we just talked about. All of the things that you would need to have completed before your data is going to be able to send completely. So pay attention to those items. Once they're complete, check them off the list and do not proceed to the tables tab until all of these items have been taken care of. Fun fact, an advisor start year summary report will alert you to records that need updating if you attempt to place a check mark next to an incomplete item. So as is sort of the theme with this page and how it works is you click a button or place a check mark in a checkbox and you get a report that will let you know this information is complete or you have errors that need to be remedied before you can advance to the next item. So it falls into a cadence of start at the top left, work your way down the list. As you go and uncover errors, go back into your data, fix the error, resubmit, and once you're error free, you move on to the next item. Each of those summaries are printable, so you can print that summary or save it as a PDF so that you have it to reference as you go back into the program and fix those items. You click the cancel summary button to return to the checklist or the previous page. So as I mentioned, you're going to work through the tabs left to right, top to bottom, starting with the Prep tab. Prep tab, you complete all the items. Once they're all complete, you move to the Tables tab. Click the first enabled button on the Tables tab, and that's going to download information from the NDE. So the Tables tab is all about updating your tables in JMC with the most recent information from the NDE. So you need to update descriptors and local education agencies and the all school table and all academic subjects table and all courses table. And once you've done that, you'll receive a summary, or once you click each of these buttons, you'll receive a summary of what was updated. Repeat steps 3 and 4, click cancel to return to the page until all of the items on that tables tab have been updated. And you'll receive a little timestamp right there where it says not done. You'll receive a timestamp to let you know when the most recent update has happened. And theoretically and hopefully, those timestamps will go in chronological order so we can see the most recent time these were updated. Once you've updated all items on the Tables tab, you'll move to the General tab. Same drill. Start at the top of the page, work your way down. Now you're sending information. This is the General tab. This is when you're starting to send information from your JMC site through Advisor to the NDE. So you click that first enabled button on the General tab to begin uploading school or student data, whatever it happens to be. Helpful tip, to enable buttons on the general tab, you have to complete all of the items first on the prep tab and the tables tab. So if you come to a page like this where it says send calendar dates for all buildings and it's disabled, well, did I complete everything on the prep tab? I'm pretty sure there's a prep item that says set your calendar dates. If you haven't set your calendar dates, you can't send your calendar dates. So complete these items left to right, top to bottom. And if you do that in order, you'll receive the information that you either need to fix, or you'll receive the information that the information's sent correctly. So fix any data quality errors and resubmit before advancing. So step 7, in that error report, you might see some items in blue. These would be items or errors that you would need to take care of, and then you would need to resubmit that data before advancing to the next step. So fix any errors that are displayed, and this is a kind of a bad example of an error, but most of the errors that you're going to get are going to be fairly apparent for what you need to do. Head to this student or this course and add this detail. So it might be a section, it might be a bell schedule that you have to add. You might have to add a last name for a student or something like that. That's also a bad example, but anything that you may have forgotten to enter will be listed as an error. You go back, fix that error, resubmit data, and once your data is error-free, you can move on to the next piece. After you've submitted all your general school data, you can move on to the Students tab. The Students tab is just going to advise you to head to Nebraska Advisor, update student by grade level. And you would submit your student information by grade level, one grade at a time. Once your student information has been submitted successfully, then you're done. If you have errors in your student data, you can go back, fix that individual student, and then update a student individually. And I'll show you how to do that here in just a moment. Again, we're under Nebraska Advisor Start Year. Here I've worked through all the items on the prep tab, so I can advance to the tables tab. It's letting me know, all right, I don't have some of these things done, so I click the button. It's going to take a little time to run through the process. Hopefully this doesn't blow up on me. It very well might, and that's okay. But once I've completed it, it will give me a timestamp, and it'll let me know that, yep, we've updated the descriptor. You can move on to the next item. The last piece in here, here's an example of the timestamp. The last thing that I wanted to show you is you get to the students page. By the time you've gotten to the students page, it's going to advise you to head to update students by grade level. We've got a couple different options here. This is under Nebraska Advisor. You can update students by grade level or update student. So I start out with the update students by grade level, and maybe I send all of my grade 0 kids. And it's going to take a little time because you've got a lot of data that you're submitting. It's going to take some bandwidth, some internet connectivity to be able to push all this information. So let it spin, let it do its thing. Part of the reason that we want to submit this by grade level is we don't necessarily want to submit all grades, and you sit there and spin for longer, and then you have a network timeout or some interruption in network service, and you can't get all of your data sent at once. So if you're a smaller school, you might be able to get by with submitting all grades at the same time. Smaller school, I'm saying like total enrollment, maybe under 100. That's kind of that line in the sand, I would say. Otherwise, maybe you got 25, 30, 40 kids in a grade. I would just submit by grade level. And it also helps you for analyzing errors. So you're going to get a list of students that might have some issues with their data that you need to go back and fix. You can go back and fix those 1 or 2 individual students, their data. Maybe it's a program record, maybe it's an enrollment record that needs to be updated. And then once you've done that, you can update student, and you can do that individually. So you can grab that one student that's airing out, and you can submit that one student's information rather than submitting for everybody in your district at once, or everybody in that grade level. Last piece on the start year tab, we're not even going to worry about it right now. It's the postgraduate information. This is probably stuff that you won't necessarily worry about until we get closer to graduation. So sending postgraduate activities is probably something that you're going to do at the end of the year as opposed to the beginning of the year. And you might not know graduation dates. So with that, Greg, do you have anything to add, or I don't see any questions coming through? Greg, do you have some things that you want to talk about as far as new stuff or anything our folks should be aware of?
Yeah, we should probably address the elephant in the room. If people are wondering when we're going to get our certified build out there, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, bear with me. I have some news updates for you. We run into this at the start of every school year regarding Ed5 certification with NDE. JMC typically certifies with NDE in August. Most years we don't have another option. It's just the way it times out with NDE, and it's trending this way annually. However, lots of Nebraska schools are starting soon, early to mid-August. So that kind of creates this time crunch. So oddly enough, right now, there's an NDE site out there, some of you may have seen, that indicates that JMC as well as other vendors are already certified. Well, I can assure you that none of us are certified. JMC is not. I doubt highly other vendors are. Why do I say that? Because NDE is still publishing documentation updates for their 25-26 changes. And the last batch were posted just last week. So it's still a fluid situation. Why does NDE wait that long? Well, it's complicated. There are many influences on that. They started publishing their changes back in April for 25-26. And they're just, as they, as the year goes on, there might be legislative changes, there might be internal discussions they're having at NDE. We're not going to do it this way anymore. We need this. Things change. It's complicated. Most recently, they finally came up with their certification test cases for vendors. We go through a battery of tests every year to make sure that the software is ready for state reporting. And that's an important step, and it really can't be hurried. But there again, we have a time crunch because folks like you want to start doing drops, adds, re-enters, working with enrollment history related things, and you need to get going, and those things are disabled yet. So another thing that impacts this whole thing is how late Nebraska Department of Ed is working with the prior year. I mean, even into July this month. We're still in July. Well, July is still data corrections went up for 24-25. So that's another thing that impacts it. Okay. We have a real quick turnaround to get ready for the new school year. And again, we have been working on the changes for 25-26 for a long time, especially the idea that we've got to update the Ed5 version that sits underneath all of this. It's an upgrade to Ed5 itself that we're doing this year. We kind of have to do that on an every 3-year cycle with NDE and Ed5. Okay. But beyond that, we've been planning for that since April or probably longer. But some of this other stuff just was last minute changes. They figured out some issues. They want more things fixed before it gets out to you all. Okay. So the good news, JMC has begun development, and we will certify sometime in the next week or so. But what we're looking at is a lot of times we'd like to get it out in the earliest August build we can. Let's call it the August 1 release. We try to be certified for that August 1 release. August 1 is Friday. I don't know if it'll come out on Friday, but it'll come out as soon after August 1st as we possibly can. It'll get published once we have all the bugs out of her as best we can, and then we ship it to you all. I don't think we're going to get certified by then, just because of the way things are rolling out late. So what can we do to help you along? We're kind of in discussions internally on how we can make this workable for you. I think what I'm looking at is maybe trying to allow you to do drops, adds, reenters with this August 1st build, allow you to import your enrollment history from the prior year with the August 1st build. We're going to allow you to do things that it makes sense for us to allow you to do, but keep you from doing things that really require certification. So we have to carefully pick through everything. And so why I think I can allow you to do drops, adds, reenters, and import enrollment history from the prior year is there were no changes in any of those data elements for 25-6. We've combed through them pretty carefully, and that looks like it should be safe. We're going to try to get that out for you in the next few days so you can start doing your drops, adds, reenters, putting in your new kids, taking care of your summer transfers, all of that kind of thing. Okay. Then projecting for around August 7th, or let's say the 2nd to the next August build would project to be as the certified build. In that point, we would then have EdFi tasks ready to go. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we have to do an EdFi version update this year, so that is one that I definitely cannot allow you to do until we're certified. Those would be things like the start year page that Jake was showing you a little bit ago, update students, so forth. So update students by grade level. So that's just kind of the way I think it's going to go down. An early August version, and then the next August version, we're going to dole out these features as soon as we can for you, but not before they're ready. We don't want you to be doing work that you then have to go and redo at a later point, and it gets tricky, complicated, and you're really frustrated with JMC. I'm sorry, we can't win. We can't get it out fast enough for you. Our hands are tied to some degree here. We'll do everything we can as quickly as we can. On to the next. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say I appreciate the transparency. Kate had something to add. Thank you for working on the certification. It's frustrating to trying to get everything ready for the first day of school, and you can't get students in and out of the system. I appreciate you and for making JMC user friendly. So we appreciate hearing that. It's not to grant excuses, but at a minimal, we appreciate the transparency here that you're providing, Greg. So that is very helpful. I just want to add before you get going into this next thing, we were talking about certified builds, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but it's at the bottom, the very, very bottom of your page there. There's a build date that's given. The current build date on there is 7/25/25. That's the most recent software build that everybody is probably seeing. One thing that you can do is, keep an eye out for this to change. Once we get the bugs worked out of the 8.1 build, that'll be the next update. Like Greg mentioned, it'll probably include some ability for you to do add drops, reenters, and handle student enrollment. But then hopefully we're pushing for that certified build, hopefully to be in there August 7th. So whenever you see the date that corresponds with August 7th, you'll know you'll have the certified build. Whether it happens on August 7th, I don't know, but that'll be probably the build date name. But anyway, sorry, Greg.
Yeah, those specific dates, August 1, August 7, those are just guesses. Again, we get a build ready, we test the heck out of it. When it passes all the tests, we ship it. So we may refer to it as August 1, but that might not come out till August 3rd or 4th. August 7th might not come out till August 10th or so. So you just have to trust in us that we'll make it as good as possible and ship it as soon as possible. The last thing I wanted to mention, Jake, unless you wanted to go somewhere else with this, I was just going to give a 2-minute overview of the changes that Della can expect for 25-26.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. As I indicated before, we do have an Ed5 version update. We have to do that about every 3 years. It's a good thing because Ed5 is constantly changing and improving, but those changes are incremental. Okay, so the good news is you probably won't notice hardly any changes with regard to that, but it does make a lot of work for us at JMC to try to make that happen. What happens is, it's a little hard to describe, but let's say something that Nebraska did that was specific to Nebraska. Sometimes they create what were called extensions to Ed5, and that's how that data gets submitted. Only Nebraska is doing that. But maybe after a while, it's working so well for Nebraska, it becomes part of the core Ed5 thing. And that's a little bit hard to describe, but let's just say that a lot of the things are like that. They're just things that have been working well in Ed5 that they want to kind of more formalize and put into the core Ed5 pieces. Okay. Enough on that stuff. Okay. We mentioned before the student section attendance will no longer be an option. So it'll disappear from the Ed5 settings page. You will see dual credit course minor changes. Again, that's related to moving things from the extensions, Nebraska extensions, to the core. So they're trying to track dual credit courses among many Ed5 states. So they've kind of taken some ideas from Nebraska, some from other state, moving it from extension to the core. It'll look a little different, but not a lot. Discipline problem behaviors. They're going to modify the description for harassment and bullying gender identity. They're going to add 2 more problem behaviors that are both of harassment bullying nature. One is for sex and one for sexual orientation. Now, what's the difference between those 3? I would encourage you, when you get the chance, to get a copy of NDE's data dictionary, or go to their website and where it describes those, and then just make sure that you read what NDE says about those discipline reasons, and then you'll know which one to pick. It's kind of a tough one for JMC to answer that question. All we can really do is to refer to NDE's documentation about them. So if you get stuck there, I would suggest, if you're not sure which one to pick, you may need to contact NDE support to pick the correct behavior, problem behavior. Okay. A couple of other quick hitters here. Special education, which all of you, from my understanding, do on SRS. There'll be some minor changes there with regard to the education setting, changing some codes there relating to private and homeschool. And then the placement type in the special ed record will go away, because that will get incorporated into the new education settings codes. Again, it's a Ed5 version change in how they're tracking special education program association. There's more things that are moving extension to core underneath. I won't bore you with too much of that, but I'll give you an example. Something that Nebraska has been tracking a little bit over the years, called the crisis events. Jake, if you would go to the View Student Data page, and you'll see a crisis tab on the bottom. Probably seldom used. It is still there. It's not going away. You would only do any reporting if you were advised from NDE that we need to report crisis events. They don't have any in the event description option yet, because they haven't identified any crises that they want to be reported. This would be something like major flooding, or COVID-19, or tornado disaster in the town, or something where they need to report a little bit of extra special information based on some crisis. Okay. That's there. It's going to stay there, but underneath it's changing a little bit how it gets reported to JMC. That's just one example. It's going to maybe look a little different, but probably not. Okay. Other items are just being deprecated. Okay. So crisis events, you may still need to report them depending on your school, but other items, let's say learning modality. So Jake, if you would go to Nebraska Advisor, and on the bottom there will be learning modality programs. This was there mostly from COVID-19, and we had to put in different modes of learning, whether they were remote learning from this day till this day, whether it was hybrid, those kinds of things. You may or may not have ever even seen this before. It probably got used in 1 or 2 years of the COVID pandemic. Well, now they don't see any need for you to report those changes at this point. So that will probably stay in JMC, but it is no longer reported in Advisor. So that was what I would call a deprecated item. Will it stay in JMC for long term? Maybe. We'll see. But the main thing is there is a list of items like that you don't have to worry about. They'll probably be in the software yet, at least for a while, but you don't have to touch them anymore. You don't have to. You can use them if you want to, but NDE doesn't need to hear about any of that anymore at this time.
It gets kind of hard to say. We don't necessarily want to take items away that schools might still be using, for their own personal use. So you might see some of these, remnants around of elements that were collected in the past or used for state reporting in the past, like learning modality. Schools have grown accustomed to it. Hey, this is a great way to track kids that are learning online as opposed to kids that are learning in person. So they might want to keep those fields. You might want to keep filling those out, but it's not something that would be showing up in any kind of error report. It's not something that would be necessary for state reporting. So,
and this one in particular refers more to how an entire school or district is handling learning modality. On the student level, I think that's really handled in the enrollment history. It's a slightly different level, but I had to do the same lookup. I looked at the enrollment history, and that if they're being homeschooled or whatever, that it's handled a little differently than if the whole school district is doing remote learning at that time. This is the school level version. So we'll give you more complete lists of things that changed underneath, things that are deprecated. We'll let you know. We want to have transparency there, let you know where all the changes are. So, but stay tuned for our what's new for 25-26 for Nebraska Advisor. We'll give you a little more detail on things there. We'll give you screenshots, examples, whatever else you need. But the bottom line is there's very few changes that are going to face you for the 25-26 school year. Mostly technical upgrades, nothing that concerns you overly much.
Great. Well, I appreciate the input. Does anybody have any questions for Greg while he's on the line? Otherwise, we're going to roll right into JMC news and upcoming events. I'm not seeing anything, though. Thank you very much, Greg. JMC news and upcoming events. Your top training resource regional workshops. Do you have new JMC users or returning staff members on your team? Hosting a regional workshop is hands down the best way to get them up to speed on our tools before your school year starts. How it works, you provide the room and we treat your staff in nearby schools to personalized learning that will leave them saying, I've got this. If you're down to host, please email us with a few days and times that work in August or September for a 2 to 4 hour workshop, depending on your training needs. One phone call, complete back to school support. Our client services specialists are getting ready to get you ready for the fall term as part of the summer check-in calls. They'll ring you this month to share a few back-to-school tools, most notably our start of the school year checklist, which is built right into JMC Office to help you divvy out, track, and complete tasks across your entire district. If you have any questions that can't wait, please email amy.bemis@jmcinc.com. In addition to state-specific regulatory Roundup webinar sessions throughout the month, you can access our state reporting resource hub and YouTube channel at any time to learn and troubleshoot at your own pace, be it navigating data collection, error detection and correction, or the submission phase. Keep reporting snag-free and government funds flowing. On September 26th, the General Store will launch as your one-stop shop for selling merch, tickets, and community ed classes and events and managing fundraising. If you'd like to get the full 411 before the launch, register for our August 13th webinar, where our trainers will walk you through key features, the fuss-free setup process, and benefits to your district, with time reserved to answer any of your questions, of course. So for Greg Gilman and Greg Appleby, I thank you for joining us today for this weekly webinar. Thank you for choosing JMC. Please feel free to reach out with all of your state reporting questions, and we will catch you on the flip side.
Thanks all.